All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of Daily December 2022, Day 18. I would like to start today by paraphrasing a famous fictional Australian by saying, in reference to yesterday's rant, that's not a rant. This is a rant. And I know my Australian accent is abysmal. It's a hard accent to do. So, yesterday, I went on a bit of a quote-unquote rant that was weird. And I talked about weird stuff and eventually got onto Daryl Davis. But anyway, today I'm going to have a real rant. Because yesterday was about what was a teaching experience. And I wanted people to be able to learn from the mistake of someone that I had spoken with. Today is not a teaching experience. Today I'm pissed off. And all of this is D&D related. I have a theme going. I don't like the D&D community. I talk about something the D&D community is doing that is just stupid. And try to learn from it, and now I'm just going to get really mad, and I'm going to call people names and things like that, all of which are going to remain anonymous, because again, the entire purpose of this is not to attack someone, it is to express my frustration. So, I have seen 3 videos in the last 20 minutes. Now, these videos have come out over the past 2 or 3 days, but they're all exactly the same. D&D is dead. And it's never going to recover. Fuck off! Oh, dear God. Alright, so, the first video I saw, I was actually going to record this video last night. It was late. Still can't eat. So I was feeling really bad, and I just wanted to go to bed. So I decided I would sleep on it, see if I felt better in the morning. Woke up. Scrolled through YouTube as I do when I generally wake up to give me something to get out of bed because anxiety and depression is fun. Saw 3 more videos of it. And now I'm just pissed. The video I saw last night was talking about how, whoa, the good times are over for D&D. WotC is going to murder it, and they are going to ensure that they ruin every D&D content creator's life. Because greed. They're not. All of this stuff that is happening right now where people are talking about, oh, the good times are over, we're all just gonna be screwed, and WotC is gonna implant chips into our brains to force feed us advertisements that make us buy DOS. None of it's happening. At all. It's based on 2 statements. 2 statements that in total make up, I think, 3 or 4 sentences. Have doomed the D&D community. Those 2 statements are, there's an investor call, or an investor presentation, something like that, where they mentioned that Hasbro does not think or believes, and the exact quote is that D&D is under-monetized. And they would like to find a way to implement the kind of recurrent spending seen in video games. So that's the first horrible, disgusting thing that's going to ruin D&D. And the second was random dude on the internet says the open game license is going away. Doesn't provide any proof for this. Says, well, I have contacts. And my contacts, who shall remain nameless and definitely aren't people from my imagination, but you can't prove that, said that the open game license is dead. It's never going to come back. And that means everyone from Cobalt Press to little indie developers are just dead in the water. So D&D was asked about this, and I don't have the quote in front of me. The quote was effectively, we're still designing one D&D. The open game license has evolved over the years. So obviously it's going to evolve again, but we currently are not in a place where we can talk about that. They're never bringing it back! They're going to ruin everything! No! Oh dear God, how stupid can you guys be? Just learn just the tiniest bit about how business works. Just a tiny bit. This is one of my biggest issues with so many people on the internet that have never actually run a business, despite the fact that a lot of these people are running businesses, because running a YouTube channel is a business. You have to deal with taxes and you have to deal with all these other things. They still haven't the fucking tiniest clue about how a business runs and normal practices in business. So we're going to lay out exactly why these people are being moronic dipshits. So the first thing that I found absolutely hilarious, the first video I watched, it opened up with, oh, this is really bad, and I didn't want to make this video. That's always how they started. I didn't want to have to make this video, but I have no choice, because if I don't, the world will end. No, it won't. Absolutely not. You are wrong. And my favorite part about this is he admits he was wrong the last time he made this prediction, but this time I'm right, because reasons. He talked about, he was pretty sure that they were going to get rid of the open game license because there's all these Kickstarters out there, and they're making all this money, and WotC's not getting a penny of that, and they're mad. And then he found out that all the Kickstarters combined would make up about 1% of what WotC makes off of D&D 5th edition. Wait, that's not possible. No, WotC makes a shit ton of money off of D&D 5th edition. You wanna know why? Because Hasbro, which is a mega corporation, actually mentioned WotC D&D on their earnings call a few years ago. You wanna know why that's a big deal? Because they're a mega corporation that makes billions. In order to show up on that earnings call, you have to be making serious bank. Especially for a tiny subsidiary like WotC. Hasbro is huge, WotC is tiny compared to them. So yes, WotC already makes a shit ton of money off of D&D. Guess what? They make even more money off of Magic the Gathering. It's unfathomable. You want to know something else that's really interesting? Magic the Gathering makes gaming stores shit tons of money. Absolutely, stores will close if Magic the Gathering stops existing. They're the only reason your friendly local game store exists. I don't care how great the business acumen of the people running it. If they didn't have Magic the Gathering, they wouldn't exist. It's how it works. So, let's talk about these two statements and exactly what they mean. I'm going to start with the open game license because this is something I have personal experience with from working in business while they were rolling out new projects and new services and things like that. I mentioned in my video before, very, very briefly, when I worked in retail management, one of my duties was I worked in a pilot store. Pilot stores get new stuff early, and the reason they get the new stuff early is they test it in a market. And they're generally the only store in the area that will get those things, or one of a few stores in a particular area. So I'm very familiar with dealing with products that are in development. I'm very familiar with NDAs. And I'm very familiar with what businesses say when asked about products that are currently in development. You want to know what they say? We currently do not have the ability to make any official comment on this product right now, as it is currently in development and may change. You want to know why they say that? No man's fucking sky. That's why they say it. They say it because of no man's fucking sky. Does anyone remember when No Man's Sky, the whole debacle around its development and then launch? It was because the dipshit running it couldn't keep his fucking mouth shut. And it cost the company shit tons. It could have ended the entire company. Luckily for them, they have a killer development staff, and they eventually fulfilled all the stupid shit that their CEO said trying to promote the game, or most of the stupid shit. They still haven't gotten all the stupid shit that he said. He just talked about everything and talked about all these amazing things, and then when the product came out, didn't have any of them, and they got crucified over and over and over again. So you want to know why WotC is saying no comment about the OGL? It's not because, we're getting rid of the OGL. No, it's because it's an in-development product, and business says you don't talk about in-development products unless it is part of a press release. That's why they, all the stuff that comes out for D&D, they will talk about that, because that is press release. That is stuff that's been approved by the marketing team, that has also been approved by everybody else in the company. They can talk about that. The OGL is not marketing ready yet. And so what do they always say? We don't have any comments about it. We can't talk about it right now. Things are in flux. Things are always changing. Things are always evolving. If you have ever listened to corporate speak ever, you have heard those phrases about a bajillion times. This is how business works. You don't talk about stuff that's not done, because as soon as it is done, if you said anything that doesn't show up in the final project, you are fucked. That's how business works. So you want to know why they're saying, well, we can't talk about OGL right now? Because it's not done. They probably haven't even started figuring out what the OGL is going to look like for D&D, because 1D&D isn't done. 1D&D is barely working as it is right now, and they are apparently changing things as they go based on feedback. So no, they're not going to talk about the OGL. But they're obviously they're thinking about changing it. They did that once. They did that with the fourth edition. Fourth edition did have an SRD, but it was a weird SRD, and they had a different license where, unlike the open game license, that it was the D20 system was third edition. Now it's the fifth edition SRD, the OGL. The fourth edition version was effectively more of a licensed thing, where you could pay for a license to make fourth edition content, but it wasn't anywhere near as open. And 100% was again the idea of leaving money on the table. Everyone says, well, it's because they don't want to do another Pathfinder. Pathfinder didn't exist when they created whatever the system was for 4E. I can't remember what it was called, but it had a different name. Pathfinder wouldn't exist for another 4 years after they did that. So apparently Wizards of the Coast was so prescient that they could predict that they were going to create their largest rival 4 years before the rival existed. That is amazing. So no, the idea that, like, one of the things that people keep leaning on is like, well, they say it's evolving. No, the open game license hasn't evolved at all, except for 4th edition. No, it does. It evolves every single time, because they learn better best practices. They learn what they should include in it, what they shouldn't include in it, stuff like that. The open game license for 5th edition is very different from the one from the 3rd edition. Especially since in 5th edition, we are allowed to use copywritten content as long as we publish it on the DMs Guild. That's my next point. Well, all these other content creators are going to lose all their money. No! Wizards of the Coast makes shit tons of money, shit tons of free money off of the DMs Guild. What do you mean? No, they make shit tons of money. For anyone that doesn't know, I am a platinum best-selling published author on the DMs Guild. I have published, I think, 3 things on there, so I'm not a prolific publisher. But I get, I don't know, a few hundred sales. Uh, as far as people actually paying me for my stuff, because my stuff is pay what you want. So the majority of my quote unquote sales are free. People just download it for free. But I still get a few hundred sales a year easily. Of people actually buying my stuff, and if you count in the free stuff, I get like a few thousand sales a year. So I'm doing okay. If you sign up for the Did DMs Guild, you sign a contract. One of the things about the contract is an exclusivity clause saying basically I'm not allowed to sell my class, the Dragon Knight. I'm not allowed to sell that on another website. I'm not allowed to sell it myself. I have to sell it through the DMs Guild. Which I'm perfectly fine with. I have no problems with only selling it through the DMs Guild. The DMs Guild has been really good to me. Part of that contract is the revenue split. I get 50% of whatever somebody pays when they buy something for me. So if they pay 50 cents, I get 25. If they pay $1, which is what my recommended price is for all my stuff, is $1, I get 50 cents of that. Now, the other 50% is split between OneDrive, I think is what it's called. It's the company that actually owns Drive-Thru RPG and the DMs Guild and all that. I actually knew the guy before he passed away. I knew the guy that owned it and started it because the game store that I used to run D&D for, he owned it. And I stopped running games at his game store because he was a fucking jackass and did not understand how to talk to real people. He was a great business person and he made a great website, but holy fuck was he massively bad at talking to actual people. And he pissed off a bunch of my players and started charging us to play and stuff like that. And we literally, one night after running a game, I had everyone meet me outside in the parking lot. I said, hey guys, just want to let you know I'm not running games here anymore. If you want to continue running games here, that's perfectly fine. This is not me saying don't support this business. This is not me doing anything. I'm saying I personally will not be supporting this business because they're not treating you guys right. They're treating the DMs okay. Like, we were getting store credit to run games and stuff like that, and I was using that to do, like, I used it to buy a Pathfinder Bestiary box, which it's basically a box of minis, but they are cardboard minis, and so you can get a lot more in a little box, and they're really nice cardboard. They're all die cut and everything. They're really nice. I like them. So I did that, and I bought a battle map and some wet erase markers and stuff like that. So those are the things. But they were charging my players, and they were getting mad at the players for not spending enough in the store and stuff like that, which they were. They were like, we encouraged everyone to buy their books through the store and everything. They just felt that they were under monetized. And so I went to we went to another store that was much, much nicer to us, and stayed there like as long as I could until I stopped running games because of my disabilities. So anyway, so going back to the DMs Guild, WotC makes probably, I don't know what the cut is. It could be more, it could be less, but the kind of accepted figure that work and publish stuff in the DMs Guild has been, it's probably a 25-25 split between OneDrive and WotC. It may be more, it may be less, we don't know, but that 25% is 100% free money. That's it. It's just free money for them. And the DMs Guild is massively popular. Every single Adventures League adventure is sold through the DMs Guild. And again, if you don't do conventions, you probably are not super familiar with the Adventurers League. That's the organized play program for D&D 5th edition. If you do conventions, the Adventurers League is massive. It is the vast majority of D&D games that are played at conventions, and by vast, I mean 90 to 95% of D&D games played at conventions are Adventurers League. And the only way you get those titles is you have to buy them through the DMs Guild. It used to be that conventions could get them for free, game stores could get them for free. I think after season 5 or 6, they stopped doing that. Now you have to buy every single copy that you use, and technically you have to purchase to be completely legal. You have to purchase enough copies to cover however many concurrent uses of that game are. So let's say at a decent sized convention, you have like 8 D&D tables running simultaneously. At any given time, you have 8 different tables running, which is not a huge convention. Like Gamehole Con can have 20 or 30 tables running simultaneously easily. If you go to something like Gen Con, they can have upwards of 50 D&D tables running simultaneously. If you have 2 tables running the same adventure, you have to have purchased at least 2 copies of the game. And technically, what should be happening, but legally is not 100% required, is every single DM that runs an adventure should have to own the copy that they run. Legally, technically, the convention itself can technically own all the copies of it and just lend them out. That's 100% legal. It's 100% accepted. When I used to run things, I tended to prefer us spending the money to actually just buy each DM a copy, because they're generally about $4 to $5 a piece. So it's not a huge investment in a dungeon master, unless the dungeon master is running like 6 different adventures, and then that turns into, $30. But even that for a convention is not a huge expense. So, they make money off of that without doing anything. And that also includes what's called convention-created content. It's called CCC. If you ever find it on the DM's Guild, any Adventures League title will have effectively a serial number type thing. They used to be DDEX, which stood for Dungeons and Dragons Expeditions, which is what the Wednesday night play service thing used to be called. It used to be called Encounters, and then it turned into Expeditions. Now it's just DDAL for D&D Adventurers League. So it'd be DDAL, and then you'll have a season. So like 7-01 would be the first adventure in season 7 for the D&D Adventures League. If you ever see something that says CCC dash blah blah, that is what's called convention created content, and that is a heavily regulated thing where you actually have to apply to Wizards of the Coast and say, hey, listen, this is my idea, this is what I'm planning to do, here's a 1-paragraph blurb of what the adventure is going to be about. And Wizards of the Coast gets to approve or deny it depending on what you do, and there are very specific rules about what you can and can't do. You have to set your adventure, at least it was when I was trying to do CCC, you had to set your adventure in the Moonsea region, because that is the area that has been designated the Adventures League area. The Moonsea region is a remarkably large place, but it's a part of Faerun. It's not Baldur's Gate, Waterdeep, Neverwinter. That's all the Sword Coast, the Underdark's another place. You had to set your stuff in the Moonsea region. You were not allowed to use any major characters. You were not allowed. Your adventure could not change the landscape or do anything really major to the lore. It had to be completely self-contained, and it had to be approved by WotC before you even started writing it. And then when you would write it, you do this. But the interesting thing about it is WotC doesn't actually pay the authors of Adventure League content. Even the official Adventure League stuff, you don't actually get paid for it anymore by WotC. What they do is they publish it on the DM's Guild under the Adventures League banner, and whoever wrote it, that 50% that goes to the author goes to the person that writes it, which, depending on the adventure, means they're actually getting paid a little bit better than what they were getting paid originally from the Adventures League, because really good adventures get bought a lot. And again, if other conventions want to run those adventures, which is really, really useful because some of them are fantastic. We had quite a few at the convention I used to run. We had quite a few that we purchased technically from other conventions, but we purchased them through the DM's Guild because they were just really, really well written, and the Adventures League adventures themselves are limited and very tightly controlled. So if you wanted to have more variety in your content, or you wanted to expand your D&D presence, having convention created content was really, really useful. So the idea that Wizards of the Coast is getting rid of the open game license, which is how people are able to do the stuff for the DMs Guild, is massively stupid. Why would they give up free money? People are literally paying them out of their profits to make content for them. This is the ultimate dream for corporate America, is people will pay you to create stuff that you sell. Like, it's bonkers. I don't know why anybody thinks, well, they're jealous that they're not getting also money. They're doing no work. Literally, you can publish anything you want on the DMs Guild, and nothing happens. As long as you don't violate any of the rules, you are perfectly fine, and they just get free money. Well, then what they're going to do is they're only going to allow people to publish through the DMs Guild and things like Kobold Press to print their own books. They will never, ever, ever be able to do that, and the whole company will implode. Oh, no. No, it's not happening. Again, I'm going to go back to this reference. Oh, yeah, it's because they're not getting a part of the Kickstarters, and the Kickstarters are making so much money, and Wizard of the Coast, nope, 1%. 1%. If they canceled every single Kickstarter ever in the history of 5th edition, if they canceled every single one of them, took them all to court, and took all the money they make, 1%. 1%. 1%. Yes, but they're greedy corporatists, and so corporatists are always going to stamp out. No, it would be shooting themselves in the foot. And again, I have to keep mentioning this. People that run multi-billion-dollar companies aren't stupid. A lot of them are assholes, but they're not stupid. Stupid people don't run companies because they close companies, with a few very rare exceptions like Kathleen Kennedy. Yes, I had to get that dig in there. Stupid people don't run companies. Bad business decisions get you not only fired, you don't work anymore. You are blackballed from the industry because you ruined a highly profitable company. There was something going around a while back, the idea that, CEOs and stuff like that only care about short-term profits because they're only there for, a couple quarters, and then they go to their next paycheck. 100% wrong. The average tenure of most CEOs anywhere between 7 to 14 years. The average tenure of your average employee is less than 5. CEOs are there longer than most employees. And a lot of times, CEOs are there for double to triple the amount of time that any employee in the company exists. So, no, CEOs are not these people that go around and steal money from companies and then run to the next one so they can ruin it. It doesn't work that way. It never has. These people that keep saying that don't have a fucking clue what they're talking about. It's that I learned what the term was, the Dunning-Kruger curve or whatever it is. It's these people that have this tiny bit of knowledge about how businesses work because they run a YouTube channel or something, that have no idea how little they actually know about it, are spewing forth nonsense. No, the open game license is not going away. It would be the dumbest thing in the world, and it would contradict the other thing that we're going to talk about in a second. They would lose money. The reason that they gave the quote-unquote non-answer is because it's in development, and you don't talk about things that are in development. It's like Fight Club. What's the first rule of in development? You don't talk about in development. What's the second rule of in development? You don't talk about in development. You dipshits! Stop making this doom and gloom bullshit. It's not true. The second point. Well, it is under-monetized, and we want to see recurrent spending. Well, yes, that sounds bad. 100% it sounds bad because we've seen what recurrent spending looks like. Look at Diablo Immortal, or as I like to call it, Diablo Immoral. And that is 100% stolen from Josh Strive Hayes because he is an awesome, awesome content creator, and he made an awesome, awesome joke. Everyone is worried that D&D is somehow going to become pay to win. It's not. First of all, it's not possible. Literally, come up with a system right now in the comments below. Come up with a system that you can make D&D pay to win. I will wait. You want a drink or something? No, I'm straight over. Okay. No. No. I'll wait. Sorry, I think this bit is hilarious. I'm sure all of you hate it. You can't. The closest I could see to creating something like that would effectively be, and I hate to kind of throw them under the bus about this because they're a fantastic company. I know both the CEO and the CCO, Chief Creative Officer, whatever. They're wonderful people. Hyper RPG added microtransactions to RPGs years ago. If you watch, and I don't know if they do this anymore because they've started doing weird things like partnering with AMC and running an official RPG on AMC's Twitch. Yes, actual real, like, they're doing super great things. I've not watched their actual streams in forever, but they have always put out really quality content. They put microtransactions in RPGs years ago because you could donate bits and you could donate actual money to give players rerolls, to give them power-ups. They had one where they had a Star Wars RPG that they ran that when you donated, you could say light side or dark side, and it would kind of change the balance. And once one side got filled up, an event would happen on just a screen. And 100% of this was all it all cost money. So the microtransactions in RPGs already exist. Hyper RPG has been doing it for years. I've never really enjoyed the practice. It's one of the things that actually inspired what I do in my own games and what I do for Zelda Universe. We stole the idea from them. Hyper RPG, if you want to get mad at Zelda Universe, go ahead. I will admit right now we stole the idea from you. But we don't use money for any of it because I didn't feel comfortable making money off of a show that we just we don't pay the guests or anything like that. I don't get paid off of it, and so I didn't feel money, despite the fact that Zelda Universe has operating costs and stuff, and that they have to, like, it is a company. So they do need to make money to continue existing, and hosting a website is expensive and all that stuff. So they do need to make money, but I just 100% I could not justify us effectively monetizing the show that I was running. And so we do similar things where the audience can participate, but it's entirely based on channel points. And before that, Streamlabs actually had their own channel point system that we used. And now we don't use Streamlabs because they're a horrible company. But we still use channel points to allow the audience to interact. They can create NPCs, they can create boss encounters, they can change things happening on screen, in live, in real time. So yes, that is the only way I could see adding microtransactions to D&D actually working and making it quote-unquote pay to win. And that can only happen on Wizards of the Coast's D&D channel. Now, they might try to do something like, well, if you charge money on your D&D shows, then you have to pay us some way. But designing a contract or a TOS or something that would do that would be a legal nightmare. And it would be challenged immediately. Definitely in California, probably in Texas, definitely in Florida, because those three are really, really litigation happy. And those three have complete opposite spectrums, but very, very strong consumer protection laws. Illinois would be another one, though they don't tend to do quite as much with internet stuff, and there's just not as many internet creators there. Texas has a huge population of internet creators. California is the hub of it, and Florida is becoming a hub for creators due to the fact that California is way too expensive to live in. So those three states would instantly sue. And it would instantly, there would instantly be an injunction put in, and they would probably lose in court. So, other than that, the actual conversation. So, first of all, you have to understand the conversation that they take this from is from an investors meeting, and it was an investors meeting that was called specifically because one of the banks, that I can't remember which one, downgraded Hasbro's stock, as in the stocks are like graded as far as how reliable they are and how profitable they are and things like that. And Hasbro stocks got downgraded during this whole Magic the Gathering kerfuffle, where again, this is another thing of people having no idea how business works, deciding that they know how business works. A couple game stores had complained that because Magic was printing so many cards so quickly that they were devaluing they were just devaluing Magic the Gathering cards across the board. And a lot of people don't realize this. Game stores, remember how I said game stores wouldn't exist without Magic the Gathering? It's 100% true. But they don't make all of their money off of just selling Magic cards. It is a large part. But a decent chunk of their profit comes from reselling Magic cards. People will come in and they will sell the cards that they don't want, and then the store will sell them back at a markup. And they make a decent chunk of change. I do not know what the revenue split is between the reselling market and the primary market is, because I personally have not worked in a game store. And the few times that I've worked with game stores, it has been exclusively dealing with Dungeons and Dragons. And I wasn't allowed to find out profit margins, the things like that, despite the fact that would have been very useful information for me, because I didn't work for them. I didn't get that info, which is, again, completely normal in a business relationship. You don't give out info like that. It's a bad idea. And so there's a couple gaming stores that had complained, well, you're devaluing one of our sources of revenue because we're not able to sell cards for as high as price because there's just more of them. Your basic supply-demand curve. The greater the supply, the lower the price. Also, the lower the demand, the lower the price. It's as much as people will claim that economics is voodoo and all that stuff. Supply-demand curve is scientific. Like, we have so much hard data. Supply-demand curve is 100% scientific. It has been studied and restudied over and over and over again. Is it a magic divining rod that will tell you the exact price everything is? No. But it is an extremely useful tool to help you decide a pricing strategy. And it can explain fluctuations in the market really, really well. So whatever else you want to say about economics, fine. Supply-demand curve is solid. This is science. Sorry, it's how it works. So because of that, a bunch of websites ran stories saying that Magic the Gathering is dying just like D&D, and Hasbro's stock started to drop. Now, I have not been able to actually dive into the data to find out exactly how much Hasbro stock dropped because of these stories or because of Magic the Gathering, because we are currently in a recession. And everybody right now is arguing about, well, are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? Is the recession coming? We're in a recession. They've changed the definition of recession like 4 times in the past year. We've been in a recession for about 2 quarters easily. Probably for a year now. And the reason we're in a recession is we shut down our fucking economy for a year. That causes recessions. I don't even need a study to tell me that. I can tell you point blank right now. If you shut down your fucking economy for a year, you cause a recession. It's how it works, folks. I will take the bullet for this. You can, anyone you want that says that we're not in a recession or tries to say that the recession was this, you could point them to me and say, well, Jody has declared himself the absolute expert on the economy and has said that if you fucking shut down your economy for a year, you cause a recession. So anyway, the entire stock market has been plummeting for a while now, at least for a quarter or two. So getting mad that Hasbro stock is dropping isn't really a big deal because everybody's stock is dropping right now, with a few rare exceptions. The market's been in the red almost every day, like I said, for at least a quarter. So the fact that their stock is dropping doesn't really mean much to me. I would much rather find out how much more is Hasbro's stock dropping than their competitors, other people in the market. Because again, if you compare, the stock of the Hiltons compared to the stock of Barry's Game Store, and I don't know why Barry has decided to publicly trade his game store. We're not going to talk about that right now. Barry has his reasons, all right? Don't you fuck with Barry. He's a nice guy. Because they're in completely different markets, they don't compete with each other. You can't compare their stocks. It's just not something that works. It's not how business works. So I have no idea how badly this has actually hurt Hasbro and how much it's just people mad that they're losing money just in general because the market sucks right now. But the call where they were making this claim about undermonetization and everything, which again was not a claim from the people on the panel. It was them mentioning that the higher ups had said D&D is undermonetized. They didn't say it. They referred to another conversation they had had, not in there. But the biggest thing you have to remember is this is an investors meeting that was called because their stock had been downgraded. So these are people, the people that they're targeting, their audience is people that are currently losing money. The entire purpose of this was to go, yeah, we know you're losing money. It's not that bad. We're going to start making money again. So everything they said in this meeting had to be, well, this is how we're going to make more money. You say things to investors and stockholders that you don't say to the public. Now, I'm assuming that this was technically a public meeting as far as people that were not stockholders could get the information, because the information is out there and there have been no lawsuits. If it was a private meeting and it was leaked, somebody would have gotten in trouble. Maybe not a lawsuit, but somebody would have been yelled at. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I'm assuming this was public. So technically, this was supposed to be public facing as well. But again, having worked in business, I can tell you 100% there are a lot of public meetings that they make public for transparency, and they really don't give a flying fuck about the public at all. They're talking to a very, very small set of investors, and everything they say is meant to make the investors feel better. That's all it is. And so that's 100% what this is they were going, yes, we know you're losing money. You're not going to continue losing money. And the reason they do that is nobody keeps stocks that they lose money on. You buy stocks to make money off of them. And so if they don't tell people, hey, we have ways to make more money, they will sell their stock, which will further decrease the value of the stock, because the more stock that are sold, the less valuable that it is. And then the remaining people will lose even more money. Then they will decide to sell their stock. And that's how companies go bankrupt, because all the value of their company goes away. And then the people that are holding their debts, they hold their debt based on, well, if you default, your company is worth this much, and the things that you own are worth this much, and we can get our money back by just selling the stuff that you own. As soon as you no longer have the assets to cover your liabilities, all the companies that hold your debt will go, you can't pay us back if you default on these. We are instantly collecting the loan. You no longer get to keep the money. We want our money now. A lot of people don't realize that a company devaluing, what eventually happens is every company operates in debt. That's how companies work. You have to operate in debt. Your liabilities have to equal your assets. That's how accounting works. So you always have to be in debt. Anytime you are low on debt, you take out new loans to improve your business. That's how businesses work. And so if your company loses enough value, you can no longer cover your debts and they will call them instantly, so that they can recoup their losses before your value goes to a point where they're never going to get their money back. That's how all this stuff works. So this entire call that everyone is doom and glooming over was an investors meeting meant to literally say, hey, we're going to make more money. Please don't sell our stock. Combine that with, again, this was a theoretical conversation with someone not a part of here, and they just mentioned, yeah, they think that D&D is underutilized. And the specific things they talk about, the people that spend the most in Dungeons and Dragons are DMs, and they make about 20% of the potential customers of D&D. 80% of the customers really aren't buying that much. If you watch my in-depth reviews, most adventures I'll go, you know what, there's really not a ton here unless there's a player's option or something. And for the most recent Dragonlance one, I said, you know what, I really don't think this is worth it for players just for a single new race and a single new subclass, and a couple new feats. It's just not worth it. Buy them piecemeal. It's much better that way. So when 80% of your target market is not buying your product and you are being, basically floated by 20% of your market, which is not uncommon. The idea of whales and stuff like that is really, really common in a lot of different markets, specifically the mobile market, gambling in particular. All of those rely on whales. But healthy businesses don't rely on whales because it's not a sound business strategy. And the only reason that mobile markets and gambling are able to rely on whales is they are literally addictive. And their entire business model is around addicting someone to it and preying on their vulnerabilities. So the reasons I'm not a big fan of gambling and the free-to-play market, because they 100% are supported by exploiting people's addictions. It's a horrible, horrible thing. So a regular company, again, a large portion of your customer base are going to be small fish, and you're going to have a smaller portion that tends to be your loyal customers, your repeat customers. But 20% is still a pretty low amount for your most loyal customers. You want that to be a little bit, I don't know where I'm getting this number, but it sounds familiar to me. 30 to 35% is the number that I'm remembering. I have no idea where this number is coming from. It just sounds very familiar to me. And in my Swiss cheese brain, that could mean anything from I like the number 35 to I read it in a business textbook. I have no idea. But my business brain says that's actually a good idea. So this may be 100% wrong. I don't know. But it makes sense to me. So I'm going to say it. So having only 20% of your customer base being what are called loyal customers or repeat customers is really low. And I don't think any business ever gets to the 50 or above 50% for repeat customers. But again, I'm not 100% certain on that. The idea that we need to find ways for players to spend more money makes perfect sense. And from a business standpoint is really, really good. Should we be worried about that? No, not at all. More likely than not. If they wanted to add this recurrent spending, which again, I don't think is possible. I think it was just, and the reason I think this is because I've seen this in every single business I've ever been a part of. Someone high up will learn something or will hear about something that makes a lot of money that they have no idea what it is, but they will pick a term out of it. And they will go, recurrent spending. We should do that. Yes, the recurrent spending is what we should do. Yeah. And they have no idea what recurrent spending is. They heard a buzzword. And they saw a presentation where our recurrent spending is making us $55 billion a nanosecond. They went, we got to do that. Recurrent spending, we got to do that. This happens so often in business. And again, most of my experience is in retail. And I kid you not, we got buzzwords from corporate so often that made no sense. It was literally just, we heard the buzzword and we are going to use it, yeah. It has never worked. And every single time it came down the pipeline and said, you need to start doing buzzword, the store manager would go, hey, Jody, got a job for you. And I would go, okay, how am I getting fucked today? Well, you got your lube on you? Here is a PowerPoint presentation that they told us to print off and give to you to teach other people about this buzzword. And I go, you realize that buzzword does, like, that you keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. You realize that this is nonsense, right? He's like, yep, you still got to find a way to teach it to the employees. Sure thing, boss. And then I would go to each employee individually because it was just easier this way. It sounds like it wouldn't be. It was. And I would show them the PowerPoint presentation. It was normally like 50 or 60 slides. And I would go, hey, I'm supposed to teach you about this. This is the buzzword they want you to use when corporate people are here. This is what they think it means. This is what it actually means. This is why we're not doing it. But if someone from corporate asks you, or a random customer comes in and mentions this buzzword, that means they're a secret shopper. And you need to repeat the buzzword like it means something. But it doesn't. And that's what I would do. And sometimes there were good things that they came down, but I had to go through all of this and pull out the good stuff and then come up with my own way to implement it in this store. And because I was in a test store, that happened a lot. So literally what this was the CEO or CFO or some random upper management dude went, well, look at this. There's a recurrent spending and we see in the video games which all the kids are playing. Every single one of them. They have chips in their brains that makes them play the games. And what they do is they recurrent the spending and they make $1 billion. So we need to put the recurrent spending in the game. But that's not how the game works. We put the recurrent spending in the game. Well, what is recurrent spending? It is the spending that is recurrent. How do you not know this? Okay, well, how do we make money off it? Because it is recurrent. And recurrent is good. And it is spending. And spending is good. You put the recurrent spending in there. They have no idea what it means. But it's a really good buzzword because due to recurrent spending, what is it? Grand Theft Auto 5 is the most profitable video game ever. GTA Online makes them more money than any Grand Theft Auto game ever. All the Grand Theft Auto games combined do not make enough money to supplement Grand Theft Auto Online for like a year. And they do that because of recurrent spending! That's all it is. You're literally dealing... You are freaking out over a marketing term. Here's another marketing term for you. Vertical integration. That was a huge business buzzword starting in the 90s and then through the 2000s and 2010s it was starting to become less popular because vertical integration eventually started turning into vertical monopolies and those are illegal and a lot of people didn't realize that the vertical part of vertical integration wasn't actually vertical integration or integration in any way, shape, or form. And nobody knew what vertical integration actually was. So yes, if you have been in business for any amount of time where there was a corporate, you have heard these buzzwords over and over and over again. They're almost never used the correct way, and they never go anywhere. Do I think they're going to find ways to monetize players more? They already have. They've found ways to piecemeal players' options through through D&D Beyond. You can buy classes. Instead of buying Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, you can buy just a subclass from there, and it costs like $2. That is targeting players versus DMs. And it's a good thing for both Wizards of the Coast and for players. Like, there isn't a downside to them piecemealing, especially because how they do it now is if you buy something, like you buy a subclass from Tasha's, if you eventually go, you know what, I want all of these, it's just easier for me to buy Tasha's. They discount the price of Tasha's based on how many things you've purchased. And it's a one-to-one thing. If you spent $2 on a subclass, Tasha's is $2 off. It's really, really simple. And if you buy everything piecemeal, you will spend more money than the book. So eventually Tasha's just becomes free and you just buy it. Maybe they'll change that to where you don't get a discount. That would suck. It's not the worst thing in the world. I don't know that many people that buy things piecemeal and then eventually go to buy the book. And the few people that do, like I have done that, probably would just stop doing it. Like that's it. Other than that, they do sell digital dice for you. I definitely see them making more interesting digital dice. Like a few of the digital dice, if you roll a nat 1 or a nat 20, they actually animate and do cool stuff. But most of them don't. So I definitely could see them going heavy into just designing more digital dice and monetizing those. They've monetized the backgrounds for your character sheets, the character portraits. I definitely see them selling more of those because those are things that generally are going to be much more player focused. DMs don't get a chance to play that often. They are generally running. So character portrait frames don't mean a whole lot to them because they don't have any characters they get to play. And backgrounds for your character sheets don't mean a whole lot to them because they, again, they don't get to play. In custom dice, I think this is a bit of a digital dice. I think this is a bit more of a toss-up. For me personally, because I am rolling so much, I'm actually not a huge fan of digital dice that do stuff because I'm rolling so often that I will get 20s and 1s a ton over and over and over again. And every single one of them, I have to wait for an animation to play. It kills the experience for me. For players, you roll significantly less. And so having that and being able to switch between games and stuff like that, you get all the fun out of it. But for DMs, it's not as big a deal. So both of those things are targeted at players, and I can definitely see them expanding those options. I could also see them coming up with new things for players to buy, but I don't see a way for them to monetize the game like you would see in a free-to-play thing. The way they can do that is through actually making video games. And this is another thing that a lot of people don't realize. Early D&D licensed the fuck out of the brand. Look at the gold box games. There are like 24 different gold box games. They all use the advanced D&D rule set. When 2nd edition came out, you had Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2 that both used 2nd edition. Icewind Dale used this as 2nd edition. There was a bunch of other games that did it. 3rd edition came out, Neverwinter Nights did it, and that had recurrent spending in expansion packs, but they weren't called expansion packs, they were adventure modules. Neverwinter Nights 2 had the same thing. Icewind Dale 2 was 3rd edition. Temple of Elemental Evil was 3rd edition. There were shit tons of video games. And then 4th edition came around. They decided to be a little bit stingier with what they were licensing out, and D&D video games died instantly. Just all of them gone. How many 4th edition based games do you know? None. Which is really funny because the big criticism of 4th edition that was going on when 4th edition was a thing was, well, it's just a video game version of D&D. Well, for a video game version of D&D, nobody fucking used it. There was one game that used the 4th edition rule set, which is Neverwinter, which when it was using the 4th edition rule set was actually a lot of fun. Nowadays, it can be fun. I play it from time to time. I have it on my PS5. It has been so overly monetized because it was purchased by Perfect World, and they make pay-to-win games. That's how it works. Every Perfect World International game is pay to win. And so once you get to a certain point in the game, you are almost required to spend money to be able to do the most current content, because it requires you to be at a certain item level. And in order to get your stuff up to that item level, you have to upgrade things. In order to upgrade things, you have to find these resources. And sometimes the upgrade chance is 1%. And the only way to not lose all the resources you have spent hours upon hours farming is to use these preservation wards. Well, preservation wards can sometimes drop in the game, but the easiest way to get them is by paying real money. And that's how they make their money. In addition, like, you can buy pets and mounts and stuff. All of that affects your item level. Weird, I know. And companions. All that stuff affects it. You can, depending on how you do it, you can buy gear. Indirectly, but still. So, Neverwinter is the only 4th edition game that ever came out. And they switched to 5th edition. Once 5th edition got started, because Neverwinter happened, I think 2012 is when it finally launched. I was a beta tester for Neverwinter. I loved the early version of it. The new version isn't horrible, but heavily over monetized. You want to know how D&D is going to start making more money? Is they're going to license a shit ton more stuff. There is a D&D comic book coming out based on the old D&D cartoon. Does anyone else remember that there was a D&D cartoon back in the 80s? Yeah, that was Wizards of the Coast monetizing their player base, because in addition to that, they can make money off of action figures and merchandising and things like that. Lunchboxes were a huge thing in the 80s and the 90s too. That's how you make money. That's how Hasbro currently makes money. Power Rangers doesn't make money on Netflix. You want to know how Power Rangers makes money? Merchandising. That's how Hasbro made money when Hasbro owned it. I think Hasbro still owns it. That's how Hasbro makes money off of Transformers. That's how Hasbro makes money off of everything, is they merchandise the fuck out of it. And so that is what we're going to see. I will guarantee it. There's a D&D movie coming out. The D&D movie is going to have action figures and toys and everything that Hasbro does really, really well. They're going to start releasing action figures for the old comic books, or for the old cartoon series. There have been comic book runs. They're going to release action figures for Minx from Baldur's Gate 3, and a lot of the characters in that are going to have action figures, and they're going to show up on lunchboxes and plushies and everything else you can imagine. They're going to have D&D Lego sets. All of that stuff makes Hasbro money. None of that stuff requires doing anything to D&D except making it more popular. And it doesn't matter what you do to D&D, the tabletop game, it will never make as much money as action figures. Ever. In the history of the world, there's never been a print run anything that makes as much money as action figures and toys do. It's just how it works. So if you're really, really worried about D&D becoming a monetized crazy, it's not going to happen. What's going to happen is they're going to license the fuck out of whatever they call 1D&D, because they're not going to keep 1D&D. It's a dumb name. They're going to license the fuck out of it. They're going to make shit tons of money off of royalties from people using their license over and over and over again. And they will be able to control that very, very closely by controlling who gets the IP and who doesn't. It's the same way that Spider-Man makes Sony money. That's how it works. That's why we're getting a D&D movie. That's why they're bringing a comic book for the cartoon. We will probably get a D&D cartoon if the comic book is successful. And it may be a continuation of the old cartoon. It may be a new cartoon. We may get a cartoon based on the movie. We will probably eventually get a D&D television series. Hell, Vox Machina Legends exists. And they had to rip all of the Dungeons & Dragons out of that in order to publish it. There is so many ways they can make money off of D&D that they just haven't. Because up until a couple years ago, Hasbro couldn't give a flying fuck about D&D. And they didn't support them. They didn't give them any money. They didn't allow them to hire staff. They treated them like shit because they were a small company, and the only thing they wanted out of them was more Magic cards. So, what I definitely see happening, we will probably get maybe not an increase in the number of books, but the number of books that they're putting out now, where they're putting out anywhere between 3 and 4 books a year, or actually, I guess it's getting closer to like 6 or 7 books a year. Now that I think about it, we're probably going to continue seeing them putting out books at a breakneck speed until the market gets saturated and it bites them in the ass. The exact same thing happened in 3rd edition. The exact same thing happened in 4th edition. The exact same thing is going to happen in 5th edition. That's how it works. It's called corporate greed, and it's not the worst thing in the world. Again, 3rd edition failing gave us 4th edition, which was wonderful. 4th edition failing gave us 5th edition, which is fantastic. And 5th edition eventually failing will give us 6th edition, which is not 1D&D. 1D&D is D&D 5.5. And from everything that I'm seeing, I don't think it's going to be super, super well received. And I think that just like the Essentials was D&D 4.5, shortly after the Essentials line launched, D&D 4th edition stopped printing books and they went into 5th edition. I'm kind of thinking the same thing is going to happen to 5th edition. And to be blunt, that's okay. 5th edition has existed longer than 4th edition, longer than 3rd edition. And it's probably going to exist at least for another 2 or 3 years after 1D&D launches. It will be the longest running edition of D&D ever. So yeah, it's allowed to end. And I'll be very happy when it does, despite the fact that I love 5th edition. It's going to end, and this may be what eventually causes it. But the Essentials version of D&D 4th edition wasn't bad. It didn't ruin the game. It just wasn't what was needed to fix it. And I have played games with Essentials characters, and they're perfectly fine, but they definitely were designed for Tier 1 play. Which in D&D 4th edition was between levels 1 and 10, which was the most popular levels to play. They had 3 different tiers in 4th edition. You had Heroic tier, Epic tier, or Heroic tier, Paragon tier, Epic tier. Heroic was 1 to 10, Paragon was 11 to 20, Epic was 21 to 30. You could go up to 30 in D&D 4th edition. The vast majority of games ended during Heroic tier or just after getting to Paragon tier. Despite the fact that Paragon got really, really cool and your Paragon path was really interesting, it just took too long to get there. Which is true about D&D now. The vast majority of D&D is played between the levels of about 4 and 10. That's what it is. You can stretch that a little bit to be all the way down to first level and all the way up to about level 12. But the sweet spot is between the levels of 4 and 10. And that's why we're seeing most adventures take place between 4 and 10. And most content is balanced between 4 and 10. That's how it works. I'm currently running high-level D&D, and it is an absolute blast. It has been super, super fun to run, and I love doing it, and I have for years, but that's just not where people play D&D. Yeah, the Essentials series worked really well in the most popular place for it to, or level range for it to be played, and I will almost guarantee 1D&D is going to do the same thing that Essentials did. WotC does seem unable to learn certain lessons from their mistakes, and 1D&D feels like Essentials Part 2, which again is fine. Essentials wasn't bad, it just wasn't good. It was meh. And some of that, like the Hexblade in 4th edition was an Essentials class, and it was super fun to play for the first 10 levels. Once it got to Paragon tier, it started being less useful. And then especially once you got to Epic tier, it just couldn't compete with the regular classes, because the regular classes just had more stuff that they could do, where the Essentials was kind of boiled down and made to be a little more streamlined and less choice and stuff like that to make it easier. Really, really similar to what's happening with 1D&D, where they're taking away a lot of the choice. They tell you which skills that you should be taking. They tell you what spells that you should be preparing. This literally feels like Essentials 2.0. So, yes, my whole rant. all these people that are talking about how the OGL is going away, how D&D is going to become pay to win, how this is ruining D&D, don't fucking know shit. And I'm so fucking sick of these dipshit morons talking like they know what they're talking about and scaring everybody. It's not. D&D is in a fine place. When one D&D comes out, it will still be in a fine place. And when 6th edition finally comes out, it'll still be in a fine place because D&D has existed for over 40 years. And it has only gotten stronger over time. D&D's not going away, and these people are dipshits. Normally, I try to be more diplomatic, and I try to go, well, this could be alerting you. Nope, I'm done with that. They keep saying stupid shit. I'm going to call them out. Every single person, if you see someone saying that, recurrent spending is going to be a thing, tell them you're a fucking moron. You don't know what you're talking about. If you see them saying the open game license is going away, tell them you're a fucking moron. You don't know what you're talking about. Please shut up and talk about anything else. Go complain about how Pathfinder 2nd edition is the real D&D 5th edition. You are perfectly fine to go and do that. I am actually more excited to listen about how Pathfinder is the better game than I am about these dipshits talking about open game license going away. Please shut the fuck up. I will see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.